listening to the Podcast Advertising Playbook, your resource to better understand and execute successful podcast ad campaigns. Hello and welcome to the Podcast Advertising Playbook. I'm your host, Heather Osgood. Today, I am joined by Scott Porretti. He is the president of Katz Digital. Scott, welcome to the program.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Heather. I've been a big fan of your podcast, so it's an honor to be on your show.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into the industry. You've been in advertising for quite some time, so tell us about it.
Oh, I've been in the audio business specifically for 27 years last week, in fact,
Wow.
at the same company.
Oh,
So,
wow. That's impressive. I didn't
right.
realize that.
Yeah, exactly. So I started as a radio salesperson back in the very late 90s. And I moved up in different roles within our organization. For the last 13 years, I've been overseeing our digital business within Katz. And so it's been great
Awesome.
to see that business grow and to be where we are today.
So I know Katz has several different kind of divisions. Tell us a little bit about Katz Digital and exactly what you do.
Yeah, so I think the way we talk about ourselves is the leading audience first omni-channel platform. And when I say that, we work with hundreds of publishers across the audio and video space, within our platforms to find solutions for advertisers who are looking to reach consumers across the marketplace. And Katz itself has been around 140 years as a trusted brand and is trusted within the media market, within the buying agency marketplace. And so we use that trust and relationships that we have to help marketers, conquer challenges that they have in reaching consumers in a vastly changing marketplace.
Sure, yeah. So when you talk about kind of reaching this customer, this audience member, is it just through podcasting, or are you doing it on a variety of channels? Are you doing streaming audio? I mean, obviously you're digital, so tell us exactly, what channels that kind of encompasses.
So the two main channels are audio and video.
Ah,
Those are the main channels that we have. And so
okay.
within each, there's different subsets of that. So within our video business, we have a strong live sports business. We have a, broader CTV marketplace. In the audio side, we have a very big streaming business. We have a unique partnership with Spotify. We helped get them going for over a dozen years now that we've been working with them. And podcasting has really taken shape for us over the last 5 to 6 years as we saw the marketplace really evolve from specifically host-read only sales to DAI. And that's the role that we play within the marketplace. So we kind of complement, as it relates specifically to podcasting,
Mm-hmm.
we complement what publishers and platforms are doing with their direct sales to bring that inventory in our marketplace and expand their advertising base through an audience first approach.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really fascinating that you touch on all of those different segments, because I have often thought that CTV and podcasting are so similar. And as a podcast industry, especially as you reference, we've been doing so much direct sales, we've been doing so many host read ads for years and years. And I feel like we talk about how we're behind and, maybe we're not doing things as other channels do. So I guess I'm just really curious. Do you feel like you look at podcasting and think, oh man, like you guys still have so much to learn? Like we're doing this with CTV, we're doing this with streaming audio. I mean, because I feel like that's the sentiment that is often shared with me. I guess I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So I love that you said that podcasting and CTV have a lot of things in common. I feel the exact same way. I grew up in the audio business, so I definitely have some passion there. I think audio in general is a bit of a stepchild, undeservingly so, to video. And so, our teams take on that challenge. I think the average American spends 8 times as much more time with audio than advertising dollars that get spent. So there's a big delta there that we're all collectively working hard to close. Interestingly enough, I'm seeing the podcasting space really embrace some of the video podcasting and try to get after some of those budgets a little bit more aggressively. So I think that's been interesting as a convergence. But I'm still so passionate about podcasting and audio and how people consume it and how they engage with it in the audio sense and how powerful that can be. So I think that that's a great story to be telling. But yeah, certainly a lot of synergies as it relates to the volume of CTV supply that's out there and making sense of it. That's often what the challenge is in podcasting. I mean, we're selling 300,000 plus shows.
Right.
The beauty of that, Heather, is that because there's so much fragmentation and diversity, there is literally something for everyone. Mm-hmm. And the people that are consuming those shows, it may be an audience of 20, but those people are super passionate. So we take our role, we're proud of our role at Katz, that we can help marketers find those audiences efficiently to tap into that passion. And again, allow that to translate that passion to whatever product that they're selling and, make those things happen from a marketer standpoint.
Yeah, yeah, that's really fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy to me that we are conflating audio and video so closely because I get why we're where we're at in podcasting with audio and video, but as an audio enthusiast myself, and I would say I think I'm similar to you that I have enjoyed audio consumption in all forms for my entire life, and I do just see it as being very different to video, and just the way that people. The way they consume it, number one, the time spent with audio is so much different than video. And also, I think the power that it has on the mind is very different than video. But it is still, I think, having started my career in radio ad sales as well, audio doesn't feel tangible enough, right? The advertisers love something they can see. They love something that can be clicked. It feels, I think, safer to the buyer than something that just feels like air. And I guess that's one of the only explanations I have as to why audio doesn't ever seem to get its fair share.
Well, I think that's fair. I mean, we love both, right? We sell both.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And what we see, they're extremely complementary to one another, right? And that's kind of the beauty of it. One of the cool things as it relates specifically to podcasting and audio has been the rush of the data companies that have come into the space, specifically on the attribution side. Yeah. That has been an enormous driver for our business because I think that, for everything you said as it relates to video, but for audio, the more these studies take shape and the more that we can prove out that audio really works and is an efficient, powerful medium to support a video strategy. Again, we're, from our perspective, we're good with them spending in video. We want to make sure we're working with them on that front, but we also want them to complement that with audio because when those things go together, it's so much more effective. The other cool thing is, as it relates to podcasting, you just see in a lot of these, we've done dozens of attribution studies, it just pops. So the story that we tell about, which makes sense intuitively, that this, passionate, engaged listener is going to take greater action. It sounds right, but it also proves out correct too. And then justifies the premiums that we're asking for and why it's worth investing in. And so I think the more marketers see that, we see that in real time, the more that they see those studies, the more that they're comfortable investing in it and the more that they're going to see it's going to move the needle for them. So that's been exciting. And I think that's serve more and more growth into the space, podcasting in particular.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I do think that we have gotten away to a certain extent from measuring podcasts in a silo. I think that 5 years ago, it was very common to say, we're going to try out podcast advertising. And frankly, I don't think that marketers were looking at how it was impacting the growth in the other channels. Yeah. And as you said, and I always hope that marketers are looking at things in a holistic manner because it's not just about how this particular channel is performing. It's about how all of your channels perform. And when you have the right media mix, what is actually, coming of that. And I've heard it over and over and over again that the minute we added podcasting in, our video performance improved, right? Our
Correct.
search performance improved. All of these things just improved. And it's great that you have the data to be able to kind of prove that out and create case studies around that.
I think there's some good momentum. It's never fast enough for us, right? We
Sure.
want it to come faster, but there's really good momentum as it relates to the buy side, how they're looking at things more holistically. The same way
Hmm.
we're approaching it at Katz, we're seeing that happen on the agency side, where they want to analyze how one helps the other instead of siloing each kind of medium separately on its own. They're looking at it more holistically. So that kind of works in our favor, and I think works in the favor of podcasting in particular.
Hmm.
So no, I think those are just this actually a week ago we just crossed 500 advertisers in podcasting mark
Oh,
for the year. So that's a good
nice.
metric. For us, all of last year we were at 550. So to break that 500 mark in podcasting is good. We're projecting to go over 750 advertisers within the podcasting space only. So that's a really good number. All kinds of metrics for podcasting are moving higher. So again, never fast enough, but all pointing to a good positive direction. That's happening here in the US, but also
Hmm.
podcast show in London, right? You're seeing a
Yeah.
whole international. So just greater awareness across the board globally about the impact of podcasting, which is exciting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
awesome to see.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, one of the challenges I think we have faced as sellers at True Native Media is that the audio buyer and the video buyer are often very different. And I think that, especially when we get up into these, larger brands, that they aren't necessarily doing a good job of communicating with one another. I guess I'm curious because you said you're seeing that they're looking at, the brands are looking at them as being complementary. Do you see any of the challenges where maybe a video buyer um, sees the value, but the audio buyer doesn't, or vice versa? What do you see play out there?
I think it's getting better. I would agree with your sentiment that it's been hard. I
Hmm.
mean, it's been very siloed out. But I think there are steps because I think brands are wanting to see that. How's my
Hmm.
strategy? I mean, brands are starting to ask more detailed questions. They want to know.
Yeah.
They're performing these omni-channel studies across their medium. So I think a lot of things are moving in the direction where they're almost forced to look at it more holistically, and then they're embracing that.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so
Yeah,
again,
that's
it would
great.
need more, but we're definitely seeing signs of that moving in the right direction. Definitely why we have our business on the sales side separated out. We have video sellers, we
Hmm.
have audio
Sure.
sellers, but we're seeing crossover. We've got
Hmm.
some of our, lead salespeople selling all of our assets because we're responding to the marketplace that wants to look at it more holistically. And they're appreciating that viewpoint to team up with them. So we're responding in that way. We're seeing good signs of
Hmm.
that. And I think those are good things for all media if it's
Hmm.
being looked at that way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree. So Katz definitely does operate in podcasting kind of in that programmatic space. And I always, like to say, let's break down these terms. And programmatic is one of those. I know you and I were chatting about how programmatic can be defined so differently. So why don't you define for us what programmatic really truly is?
So, I mean, I don't want to be the authority on what the programmatic term is. I mean,
I
we could
think
define
after
it. We could,
27 years,
but
you deserve that, right, Scott? You can
maybe. No,
define it.
thank you, Heather. That's very nice. I think when we talk about it for our business,
Sure.
programmatic to us means a self-serve action that takes place. So when we package up either audio or video supply, we issue a deal ID and a trader or a DSP activates against that supply in a self-serve manner. That's what we call programmatic on our end, and everything else would be a managed service or direct IO transaction that occurs between a buyer and a seller. I do recognize within the podcast marketplace in particular, because this has come up over and over again, typically podcasters, will talk about everything that is either their own show sale, direct sale, and everything else in the ecosystem is programmatic. So that's why I always like to ask that question first. We do both as it relates to programmatic. So our teams are selling managed service, direct IOs, working with buyers to curate audience first podcasting packages. So we're absolutely doing that. And we're also working with traders at DSPs that want to activate against our marketplace, our podcasting marketplace, and we're packaging deal ID. So we do both. That's why I always like to ask that question, but that's how we define it. But we're open to how anybody wants to define programmatic.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so good to hear you say that. And I know that I certainly have been guilty in the past of clumping them all together and putting them in the same category. And as we have gotten much more entrenched in programmatic here at True Native Media, I have gotten a much clearer understanding of like, oh, yes, okay, this is programmatic. And to your point, I think it's just easy for the host or for the creators to say, oh, well, I don't have anything to do with that. Those ads are just being placed directly into my show. So I'm just going to put that into the category of programmatic. And to be fair, that's fine, right? Like it's totally cool. They can think that that's what it is. When we're talking about it from an actual buy side, though, it's really important that marketers are understanding what we're talking about and, opportunities are and what the options are. What percentage of your business would you say is self-served versus managed services? Or is that something that's important to look at, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, we like to just track it as a metric. I would
Sure.
say 25 to 30% of our business in podcasting is going to be programmatic. So that is it,
Okay.
ID issued out to the marketplace. And about, 70% is going to be managed service still. So we're seeing
Okay.
the programmatic piece grow. We're seeing
Okay.
overall pie grow. So both sides are growing, but more people on the more programmatic buyers are interested in buying podcasting and they're seeing that capability and they're moving on. As it relates to just programmatic or DAI, dynamic ad insertion, or just that, that host dilemma that you said, it's been really interesting to see that evolution over the last 8 to 10 years in podcasting. I remember we used to first be at Podcast Movement and I'd be on a panel talking about DAI. And I mean, they were
You
basically
got lots of ugly stares and
throwing tomatoes at my face, but just discuss. I come off stage and they would just, you're the scourge of the business. I,
yes.
I think, again, I actually understood that. I understood how passionate they were and what
Sure.
they saw. Our side was we were very protective of our content. We made sure that the right kind of ads were on that space. We safeguarded it because we are passionate about the space. But it's been awesome to see that evolution where I think now that even a show host understands that there's a couple different ways that they can monetize their show. They can sell it on their own, which we love and support,
Yeah.
right? We love that. But there's also a way you can bring advertisers in as well. And especially if you're not the top 20 shows that everybody wants, and you're a little bit like we see our role as helping to fund a lot of really good content that's out there. And so we're proud of that. I
Mhm.
think the marketplace is warming up to us a little bit, which has been kind of nice to see. But we feel we have an important role to the creators that are out there, and we're really passionate about the space. And the other thing I would say is Katz does a lot of educating about podcasting. We have
Mhm.
our research team. There's a lot of good things that are out there. We specialize in local, so like regional local advertisers.
Mhm.
And many of them have been kind of unaware of that they can activate within the podcasting marketplace. So many of our advertisers are first to market with podcasting. We've
Yeah, I bet.
introduced them. And so that's kind of a cool spot for us to be in as it relates to the
Mhm.
podcasting industry.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, just to kind of go through the comments you made there, one position that I have always taken, and we have always been host read first. I see the value in host read. I don't think anyone would debate the value of host read, but the reality is that if we as an industry, and when I say industry, I mean podcasting, want to take our inventory and our ad revenue to the next level, it has to be dynamically inserted. And the reality is that we have so many impressions that go unsold, especially when you're not doing dynamic ad insertion. So for me, dynamic ad insertion is still very, very key to the success of the overall industry. And And I think that it's been really nice to see the, I guess, the embracing of programmatic more, and even like we could just say announcer read ads, right? Like if
Yeah.
we don't want to necessarily go straight for the programmatic, we could just say announcer read ads are becoming more popular, and it makes me happy because I think it's good for the industry. You cannot physically sell all of the impressions are out there with host reads. Like it's just the way the technology is even created. I could look at a show and I could say, hey, that show's got 200,000 impressions to sell in July, and they get a crazy episode that just goes viral. And instead of having, that base that I thought they had, suddenly now they have 500,000 impressions or a million impressions. I can't sell those because I'm selling on historics. I'm not selling on something that's to come. And we have to be able to capitalize on that in an instant, right? Like
Sure.
that traffic happens in an instant. And that's the value of those ads that are dynamically inserted. And when they're purchased at scale through a programmatic, platform, I think there's real value in it. But you did touch on that local nature, and
Yeah.
I love that. I had a past coworker of mine call me up about 5 years ago, and he buys audio for, a small market in California. And he said, Heather, how in the world am I supposed to buy podcast ads? And at the time, I'm like, you're gonna have to buy them programmatically, but I don't know exactly what the best, place to send you is. It wasn't necessarily super easy. So I guess talk me through that. If someone does, and I love regional too, right? So I mean, you've got your local, but you also have maybe I'm, a Texas auto dealer and I've got 50 locations across Texas, or maybe I have 50 locations across Western United States, right? Like it's with host read ads that are, put into one single show, it's very difficult to have any real scale. But talk us through as someone who's looking to buy locally, what's a good strategy for kind of, tapping that inventory?
So first of all, for your friend in California, now you know you have my name, so
Yes,
you
I will
could
give them straight to
you could
you.
you could send them our way. I think you just nailed the challenge though, and I think many marketers give up. They don't understand how could they do it, how is it possible. I have a footprint. I mean, when you think about regional or local advertisers, they're almost endless. Think about fast food chains.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of them that are very regional in terms of what they look like. You mentioned the auto dealer, supermarket chains. There are so many different people that need to take a regional approach to their creative. The
Mhm.
beauty is no show has enough scale to activate in a market, a DMA, whatever that
No.
is. So, but when you aggregate up all of this content together and you're really trying to find a demographic or an audience, that's when you can really leverage all that, through a system and by buying it managed service or programmatic to activate in that way. So, but that's education. So that's trying to get to all these people that we don't want them to give up. We don't want, it's not overwhelming. There are a few people that can do what we do. I mean, that's our
Mhm.
value. We bring it in. When I say local is a specialty, and by the way, this same thing is related to our CTV business, is related to our general audio streaming business. We bring up scale together, and it's not because we can pound our chest about how many shows we have and everything. It's really so we can activate a targeted campaign.
Mhm.
That targeted could be by geo, could be a little city, a marketplace, zip codes, or it could be audience matching against, some first party data that they have. It could be layering on a one single genre that they want to look at. Maybe it's just true crime. So we have the capability through the scale that we have to do all kinds of different things to help, again, a marketer who might be looking at a regional approach really activate across the medium, in this case, podcasting, in a
Mhm.
good way. So
Mhm.
it's really about education. We have an awesome sales team that's out everywhere. We have offices across the country, but there's so we try to market, we try to educate people. You can activate against podcasting. It will work for you. Here's how
Mhm.
you do it.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah. How does the attribution tracking work? Because I guess the way that I am, educated on it is okay, the advertiser is going to put the pixel on their site, the podcaster is going to put the pixel on their show. But when we're talking about, mass reach, how does that work?
So I'm not a data scientist. So each one of these companies would tell you how
Hmm.
they have their own household graphs and how they monitor the performance and what it looks like. So I don't want to, jump into that. But in general, you have multiple different attributions, areas of focus. So we have brand lift. So there's
Hmm.
different companies that we'll use that really focus around brand lift that shows when you advertise across podcasting or any medium in this site, it raises the awareness of your brand. Then you have drive to site. So there's a lot of key partners that are in that area. So, when I'm running these campaigns in a certain geo, am I getting traction on my site? How do we
Hmm.
tie those together?
Hmm.
And then we have like footfall, like where are people taking action? There's your place Foursquare, you're in market, and they're really monitoring around are people showing up in a location and
Okay.
uh, and doing that. So I think there's depending on what the approach is, we like to be attribution data agnostic,
Yeah.
meaning we'll work with whatever partner that the advertiser wants
Hmm.
to work with. And honestly, we have great relationships with all of them. And again, it proves over and over again that this medium really works and is a powerful tool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about creative. When you work with brands, do you find that they're unsure about how to execute on creative? Do you handle creative? Do you outsource it? What does that look like?
So while it's all over the board, it's a really important question. So we have a Katz Creative Studio. So we
Mm-hmm.
work on both video and audio, and
Hmm.
podcasting is a subset of audio. We are working with brands that maybe don't have an audio creative or want to figure out how to better customize their audio creative to fit a podcasting environment or a specific genre base. So we have a lot of assets and expertise that we can use. However, what you do find, and this is kind of a spot as it relates to host read, like maybe letting doing a read, right, which could be very powerful. There are certain brands that just have one message. They pay an agency a lot of money to create that branding spot, and they want to run that spot because they want
Sure.
synergy across all of their media types. So there's just different. We would advocate that if you're going to really activate in the podcasting space, all creative works. But if you make it more, intimate or relatable to that environment, then it's going to be more effective.
Right.
And so we try to coach people on doing that to fully take advantage of the space. But if you've got your own creative and you feel positive and you want to keep brand consistency, we're going to take that too. So we try
Yeah.
to offer a lot of solutions and coaching
Hmm.
if people want it and let them take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that it is important that podcast creative should be different. I hear what you're saying, and I know for sure that there are brands out there that O'Reilly's wants their O'Reilly's jingle in everything they do, and so they're not going to
Yep.
run an ad without that, or what have you. But I just, as a podcast listener, when you've got those ads stacked up and you've got a host read, you've got a host read, and then you've got an announcer read, really taking that creative down to the level of the listener and making it feel part of the show, which I think you can do with creative really relatively easy, that makes it feel just more acceptable than a packaged ad. So I don't know. But I guess it would be really interesting, and you probably have done something like this, but to study different creatives and say, if creatives are, more based on the podcast. Even to me, it's like when they say this, today's podcast episode is sponsored by blah 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 or whatever. I just think it makes it feel like, oh, this ad was meant for me. It's here for a reason. I think it would be interesting to study the creative types and see if one outperformed the other.
So what I would tell you is, so I agree with you, but we just want them in, right? We want to
100%.
bring them in. So,
I get that for sure.
right? So
Yes,
yeah, we're only going to fight so much, and we want
100%.
we're the yes people, right? We want to
Yeah.
bring it. We've tested, and we will do this with advertisers. Some advertisers want to test different creatives,
Yeah.
in terms of what's working across different areas, whether it's audio or video, if it's native to the environment that it's being served in, if you're watching a sports content and it's a sports relay, it's going to be more
Yeah.
impactful. Intuitively, you'd think so. But what I would say is, and O'Reilly's is a good example because we run them and we do attribution against them. They do have a great little jingle, and it
Sure.
does work really well in podcasting.
I bet.
So, you know what I mean? So you're right, but join us, come
Yeah.
in, and just take advantage of it. However you want to do it is kind of
Yeah. Yeah. No.
up.
Well, and I do think like O'Reilly's is one that has like a really strong sonic signal, right? I think we all, when we hear their jingle, are like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. My kids, I remember my kids were little, they would sing it, and I'm like, okay, that's obviously working well for them.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, so I mean, I don't think it makes sense to take someone with such a strong
Yeah.
sonic signal and say, don't use that. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I think it would be interesting. Um,
Those, Heather, those really like localized region. A lot of those advertisers are much more open to trying some different things. We like to
oh,
work with them. Like
sure.
we see Cats as like, yes, we're sellers, but we really want to be consultants to
Yeah.
marketers. If it works, you're going to keep coming back. Like we're really invested in the medium and the content that we're selling. And so we want to work with somebody that wants to test things out or try different creatives. Like those are the perfect customers for us. But you'll see that on the local level. They're very open to trying some different things, and that brings them in. And you're right. I think it can be pretty effective.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm really glad to see that it's growing on the local level. I'd love to see podcasts grow on a local level, period.
Yeah.
I think that there's so much rich content locally. I just wish that there was an easier way to grow audience. And yeah, I'd love to dig into the whole local scene sometime. It would be interesting to find, like a localized podcast. And then, but the great part about how you're selling advertising is that we can target this area, and you can get on Joe Rogan or you could get on these massive shows, right? And so you're getting in front of those listeners, but at that local level, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So, in terms of, I guess, just looking at the next phase of advertising, and advertising growth, what do you think are maybe the obstacles that we still have to overcome? Are there certain barriers that are still keeping advertisers away from podcasts in particular?
I I don't think anything's like keeping them away. I think
Okay.
most people, the majority of people consume podcasts, so they recognize the value of it. I think it keeps going back to this audio doesn't get its fair share.
Mhm.
Proving that out. Getting more advertisers aware of the power of audio and to continue to make investments there. So you've got the IAB doing a lot of work with media mix modeling, like to,
Mhm.
to highlight it better. I think there's important work being done on that front. I think all the data attribution stuff and promoting that stuff, there's work to be done on that front. Education, as we were talking about. So I think those are the obstacles. I mean, there's still a delta. The beauty of audio in general and in podcasting, everybody does it. So we're not selling something weird. It's
Right.
not like they don't know it. I mean, even in pop culture, like podcasting has had its moment for a long time. It's interesting how the area I'm seeing it really, and it's definitely happening now, so it's very relevant. We do a lot of political business at
I was going
Katz.
to ask about that. Thank you for bringing
So
that up.
yeah,
Okay, so
so
you
so
are
I
doing a
mean,
lot of political.
yeah, I mean, Katz as a company will do over $1 billion of political business, right? So
Nice.
we have a big footprint in that arena. This is an area which has historically been extremely TV video centric, which still is. And again,
Mhm.
there's a lot of good reasons why they want to activate in there. But audio has been, more of a stepchild in that arena. Well, that's been changing over the last few
Mhm.
years, and we're seeing it. Podcasting is driving a lot of that audio awareness and excitement. There was
Mhm.
no doubt, in the 24 election that there was a lot of talk around podcasting. Well, that's starting to move forward into this cycle. I cannot tell you the amount of plans we have out there for different campaigns and agencies around podcasting. And
Mhm.
so, again, that's where, whether it was, anecdotally or that people are aware of it, people are starting to try to find ways to take advantage of podcasting. I think we're going to see a big season of spending and growth in podcasting for political this year. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of areas where, we talked about localism, political,
Mhm.
all the growth within programmatic self-serve trading, what attribution's been doing, more and more advertisers coming in. So there's a lot of good things happening in the
Mhm.
podcasting space. Again, it just needs to be more and it needs to go faster. And we're trying to
Right.
move
Right.
that
Right.
as we can.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear that political is increasing because there is a lot of money to be made in political, and the fact that we really haven't gotten much of it in podcasting, I think has been unfortunate. I do think it's a challenge with a lot of the hosts that don't want political ads or they and I guess I would be curious how you guys have it labeled because it does seem like I am sure with our hosts that like, some of them would say I won't take any left-leaning ads, but I'll take the right-leaning. I'll take the right-leaning and not the left-leaning, right? So like, do you have some like classifications
Yeah.
around, I guess,
Yeah.
party affiliation?
Yeah, sure. So that's important to us, right?
Hmm.
We're not looking to sneak anything through a podcaster, right? There's some
Right.
sensitivities as it relates to some of the production. So we actually go through the process of identifying with the shows and platforms who will take what center ads, maybe issue ads, candidate ads, left leaning, right leaning, and we have pre-packaged political supply and organized in a way to fully take advantage of the audiences and what the shows want to see,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
that's kind of what we're doing. And again, that's the beauty of having so much content that
Right.
we have enough to activate in any congressional district or any area and
Right.
to put the right ads on the right content that's going to be effective for both the voter
Yeah.
in line help drive that results, but also work within the parameters of the content creator. So we're not
Yeah.
butting up against how they feel or causing issues within the environment.
Yeah, that's terrific. So I know we need to start wrapping it up, but I have just a couple more questions for you. In terms of pricing, because you're selling, several different channels, how does podcast pricing stack up to, like, let's say a streaming audio? It seems to me like I would guess that it's more expensive, but how does it stack up?
Yeah, I mean, it is more expensive. So
Hmm.
podcasting is a premium offering within the audio space and deserves to be so. Um, when you get into like anything, the price moves up depending on how targeted it is, how you narrow
Sure.
the geography. But I will tell you, as a metric, the pricing is holding and maintains a premium. Um, in a really good way. I mean, it is
Hmm.
a premium content, but we have to sell it that way. We need the data to prove that out. It does, but it's a premium product and we represent it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So, what is your prediction for the podcast industry? What do you think is next, especially as it comes to those announcer read, programmatic type ads?
I think it's going to continue to grow, just in general. Everything
Hmm.
is going to continue to grow. More announcer read ads. I think, better content, good content coming into the space. We're going
Hmm.
to see that continues to rise, just, more and more things that are out there. I'm really watching the video podcasting. The
Yeah.
industry is pushing it really aggressively, the podcast shows and hosts. And it was interesting to see Apple really lean in with what they're trying to do. I mean, historically, it's been primarily YouTube, which
Hmm.
which is a behemoth on its own right. But I think that what Apple's doing and what some of these creators are doing and Spotify is doing is kind of exciting. So we're kind of leaning into that and see what happens there. Does that open up new revenue channels for the space? But
Yeah.
it's going to continue to grow, and I think we're going to see it, continue to move in a really positive direction.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Scott, if people want to connect with Katz Digital and take advantage of your offerings, where is a good place for them to go?
They can go to katzdigital.com, KATZ digital.com. That would be great to check us out. So,
Excellent. Well, thanks for
all
being on
right.
the show today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Great talking to you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Heather.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you for listening. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. I really find the conversation fascinating. I love the idea that we can take all of this inventory that we have, maximize what we have in terms of really that ad placement, but also target so locally and target so specifically. So if you are thinking about podcast advertising, make sure you head on over and check out Katz, and I will catch you again next time. Thank you for listening to the Podcast Advertising Playbook, your source to a better understanding of the podcast advertising industry.